again! Welcome to Annie's Crochet Stripe Afghan Club video tutorial for kit number 8. I'm Lena Skvagersson, and as your guide, I'm looking forward to walking you through the next 3 stripes in this kit. Stripes 22, 23, and 24 are filled with new stitches and techniques that are going to add texture to your Afghan. I'm excited to have you join me for these next 3 stripes. In stripe 22, we are going to learn how to work the super cool Tunisian looking linked stitches. This stitch is so pretty and quite easy once you know it. Then we will use our cluster skills to make stripe 23, skipping stitches and working clusters across for 3 rows. Finally, we will put our double crochet stitches to work as we get the hang of how to work tapestry crochet with 2 colors at the same time. Before we begin crocheting, let's review the materials included in the kit and the items that you will need to have on hand. In today's shipment, you got yarn for stripes 22, 23, and 24. You got the colors Seafoam, Harbor, and Spa. In addition, you will need some remnants of the cream that you have from previous stripes. You have a new instruction leaflet, you have your eye hook, stitch markers, and the yarn needle. You will also need your scissors and a tape measure. Are you ready to begin stripe number 22? We are going to learn how to work linked stitches. Let's get started. So far, we have learned basic stitches and several fun techniques. In this stripe, we're going to add yet another fun texture created by linked stitches. It's so decorative and easy once you know the trick to it. Let me show you. So this is what linked stitches looks like. And the interesting thing is that we're not going to work back and forth like we have been, but we're actually going to work back and forth in this direction. That's very interesting. So let's get started. For this stripe, we will be working with Seafoam. So grab your Seafoam color. We are on the right side of work, and we're going to start working into the very first stitch. So put your hook through that first stitch, wrap Seafoam around your hook and pull it through. Now we're going to start by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's going to give us the height of our stripe. Now we're going to pick up stitches in each one of these chain stitches, starting in the second one from our hook. So go into the second chain, pull up a loop. Go into the third chain from the hook and pull up a loop. Go into the next one, pull up a loop, and then go into the last one and pull up the loop. We now have 5 loops on our hook. We will yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through the second 2, yarn over and through the next 2, and then a yarn over and go through the last 2. So that is our first stitch of this row. Now we're going to work stitch number 2. So we'll turn a little bit around like this. We're going to work along the edge here, and we're going to work into these horizontal bars that we created on the previous stitch. So start out by going into the first one of those bars, yarn over, and bring up the loop. Go into the next one, yarn over, and bring up the loop, and then go into the last and third one and bring up the loop. Now reach down into this row of double crochet and put your hook into the next double crochet, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we have 5 loops on our hook. We'll yarn over and go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2, yarn over through the next 2, and then again a yarn over and through the last 2. So that was our second stitch, working the linked stitches next to each other. The way we work this second one is exactly the way we're going to work every single one across here to the end of the row. And I'll work one more together with you. Turn it a little bit over sideways here. Go into that next horizontal bar and bring up a loop. Go into the next one, bring up a loop, and then go into the last one and bring up a loop, and then reach down into the next double crochet and bring up the fifth loop. Now, yarn over, go through the first two, yarn over, go through the next two, yarn over next two, and yarn over through the last two. Now we can really see this texture starting to take shape. Working into these horizontal bars creates these lines here, and we're just going to continue the exact same way, and I'll meet you again when it's time to work our very last linked stitch. I'm about to work my very last linked stitch, picking up loops here in the horizontal bars. And now for my last one, I have this chain 3 at the beginning of previous row. So I'll go into the top of those to pick up my last and fifth loop. I'll go through the first two, through the second two, next two, and here when I'm about to go through the last two loops, I'm actually going to change to Harbor because that's the color we're going to use for our next stripe. So just pick up Harbor when you go through the last two loops. So then after that we can finish off Seafoam. That finishes our linked stitches stripe. I'm going to just double check here. It's supposed to measure an inch, and so it does. So we are good to go. We have finished our linked stitches stripe. Now you know how to work linked stitches. It's time to move on. Let's make some V-stitches. Stripe 23 uses our double crochet stitches and will test your cluster skills. This unique stripe has a 1 row repeat, which means that you will very soon get the hang of it. And you'll add the next stripe to your collection in no time. This Harbor Blue Pretty stripe is 3 rows of 4 double crochet clusters. I will show you how. I have Harbor on my hook. I'm going to start my next stripe. First, I'm going to turn my work over. So I'm now on the wrong side of work, and it starts with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to work a double crochet into the very same stitch. So yarn over, go into the same first stitch on this row, and then work your double crochet. Then we are going to chain 2, and now starting here in the next stitch, we are going to work a beginning 4 double crochet cluster. You need to go back to see the special stitches to get the description of that, and I'm going to show you how that's done. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and pull through, and go through the first 2 loops. Then yarn over, go through the same stitch, pull up the loop, go through the first 2 loops. Now I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to skip these next 2 stitches, and then work into the next one, pull up a loop, and go through the first 2 loops. Another yarn over, go through the same stitch, pull through, go through the first 2 loops, and here we are now with 5 loops on our hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the 5 loops I have here on my hook. So now you can see how these 2 double crochet clusters are worked together at the top. So Now I finished the first beginning 4 double crochet clusters, and I will chain 2. Now we get a bracket, so we're starting a repetition. It says to start here in the same stitch as our last stitch worked in and work our next beginning 4 double crochet clusters. So again, I'm going to yarn over, go into that same stitch, pull up the loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, same stitch, pull up the loop and go through the first 2 loops. Now skip the next 2, work a double crochet by yarn over and go into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. Again here now we have 5 loops on our hook. We'll yarn over and go through all 5 loops, and then in the repetition comes a chain 2. So that's the repetition. Working a beginning 4 double crochet cluster starting in the same as previous stitch, and then working it here, skipping 2 stitches in the center, ending with 2 chain stitches. So that's what I will be repeating here now across, starting, working into the same stitch as our last one, yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and through the first 2. Yarn over, same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and through the first 2. We have 3 loops on our hook. We'll yarn over, skip 2, then go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. We have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, go through all 5 and chain 2. So that was one more time the same repetition. I hope you now have an idea on how to work these cluster repetitions. So we will keep repeating them across, and I will meet you again at the end of the row. I'm at the end of row 1. I've done my last repetition with chain 2. I have 2 more stitches on the row, so I'm going to skip the next stitch here, and then into my very last stitch I'm going to work a 2 double crochet cluster, and you can read about how to make that in the special stitches, and I will now show you. So you do a yarn over, you go into the last stitch, pull up a loop and go through the first 2 loops only, then make another yarn over, go into the very same stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. You yarn over and go through all 3 loops. So that's a 2 double crochet cluster here at the end of your row. We have finished our first row. We'll turn over to the right side of work, and we are ready to work row 2. We'll start by chaining 3, and we'll work a double crochet in the top of the same stitch. And then we will chain 2. And now we're going to work very similar to our first row, but instead of placing our clusters in the stitches, we're going to place them here in our chain spaces. So it says to do the continuous 4 double crochet cluster and to read about it under the special stitches, but I'm going to show you now how to do it. You'll yarn over, go into that first chain space, bring up the yarn, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. Then make a yarn over, go into the same chain space, bring up the yarn, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. We will continue over to the next chain space, yarn over, go into that one, yarn over and bring up the loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go into the same space, bring up the loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. We have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, and go through all 5 loops. So now you can see our first cluster here is starting in this chain space and ending over here in this chain space. And we will chain 2 before working the next cluster. So again here now, yarn over, go into the same space as we just worked into, yarn over and go through the first 2. Yarn over and go into the same space again, bring up the loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Now yarn over and go to the next chain space, bring up a loop, go through the first 2, yarn over into the loop, yarn over and go through the first 2. Now we have 5 loops on our hook. We'll yarn over and go through all 5 and then chain 2. So that is our repetition here now for row 2, working all across in the same manner, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row. I'm at the end of row 2 and I've worked my last repetition here, and I just made 2 chain stitches. I have this double crochet and the chain 3 left on the row, and I'm going to place another 2 double crochet cluster here at the top of my chain 3. So yarn over and go into the top, pull through a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2, yarn over, go into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2, and then with the 3 loops on the hook, I yarn over and go through all those 3 loops. So that is ending our second row, and we are ready for our third row. We'll turn around, we're on the wrong side again when we start our third row, and row 3 is going to be worked exactly as row 2. So you know how that goes. We're going to start with the chain 3. We're going to put a double crochet in top of the same stitch. We're chain 2, and we're going to work clusters in the chain spaces. So starting in the first one, we're working our first 2 double crochets halfway, then we're continuing over in the next chain space, working our next 2. When we have 5 loops on our hook, we yarn over and go through all 5 loops, and then we'll chain 2. So that's the repetition, and we're just going to keep repeating that across. I'll meet you again at the end of the row. I'm nearing the end here now of row 3. I worked my last repetition. We're going to make a double crochet cluster here at the top of our chain 3. So go into the top, pull up a loop, go through the first 2, yarn over, go into the same stitch, pull up a loop, go through the first 2, and now with 3 loops on our hook, we're going to bring in Spa, because that's the color we will need for our stripe 24. So put Spa on your hook and now draw through all those 3 loops there. And then we can fasten off Harbor. We have finished our stripe number 23, and I'm going to go over to the right side again so we can take a closer look here. Here we have our 3 rows of clusters, and I'm just going to double check my gauge before we are all done. So we're supposed to be at 2 inches for this stripe. It looks like we are right on track. So we are ready to go. We're done with stripe 23. Let's move on to stripe 24 and make some color work. This stripe is all double crochet, but we will be using 2 colors at the same time to create this pretty triangular look. This is going to be fun. Let's get started. This stripe has 5 rows where we on row 2, 3, and 4 will be working with 2 colors at the same time. Let's get started. I have the color Spa on my hook and I'm ready to start row 1. I am working a chain 3 here at the beginning of the row, and then I will work 2 double crochets here in the first chain space. So that was 1, and then there was 2. Now I'm going to put 3 double crochets in the next chain space. 1, 2, and 3. And now from here on, you're going to place 3 double crochets in each chain space across until you get to the last one, and I will meet you there. I'm nearing the end on my first row, and here at the very last space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. So not 3, but 2. We're adjusting our total stitch count here. So 2 there, and then we're going to put a double crochet in top here of our chain 3 at the beginning of previous row. So there we go. We have a total of 135 double crochets across here on row 1, and you might want to count them to make sure that you are on track for our next row. So for row 2, we're going to turn around and start on the wrong side. And before we start working this row, I'm just going to say that we're going to be changing colors, and the trick here is that when we work a stitch before changing color into the next stitch, we're going to do the last pull through with the new color. I'm going to show you what I mean by saying that. But first now, it says to chain 3 and then change to cream in the last chain. So follow me here now. We're going to chain 1, 2, and now when we're going to chain our third one, we're going to change to cream. So bring in your cream color and pull that through your last and third chain. So now that's done, we can see a bracket, and we're going to start this repetition. So we're going to work a double crochet with the cream color into our next stitch, and we're going to change to spa in the last pull through. So work a double crochet with cream into your next stitch. So just as you normally would, you bring up a loop, you go through the first 2, and now since we're going to work next stitch with spa, instead of working our last go through with the cream color, we change to spa and pull through those last 2 loops. By doing that, you can see here now that this complete stitch is made with cream, but we have the loop in spa ready to work our next stitch. Now with spa, we're going to work double crochets in each of these 5 next stitches. And we are going to work around this cream color to make sure that it follows us along. So line up the cream here at the top of your stitches, and then work a double crochet into your next stitch. Make sure that that cream color is getting covered there at the top when you make your yarn over and pull it through. Then yarn over and go through your first 2 stitches, yarn over and go through your next 2. So that was 1 double crochet. We're going to make 4 more. Same thing, go into the next stitch, work around the cream color as you work your double crochet. Make sure that this follows along the top, yarn over, go into the next stitch, work your third one, yarn over, working your 4th double crochet, and now we're ready to work our 5th, and pay attention because the next stitch after our 5th is going to be in cream again. So while we work our 5th stitch here around the cream color, we're going through the first 2 loops, but here when we're about to do our last pull through, we switch place with the colors and instead do a yarn over with cream and pull cream through so that we now for our next stitch are ready to work with cream. So here, we're just gonna make one cream stitch. So wrap the yarn around, go into the next stitch, working around the spa collar, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through the first two. But as we're changing to spa again, change places of the two colors, make your yarn over with the spa collar and go through the last two loops. Now we have spa on our hook and we are ready to work our next 5 double crochets. We line up the cream color here at the top of the stitches and we're working 5 double crochets covering up the cream color. 1, 2, 3, 4, and ready for our 5th one. You can pay attention to that I'm pulling a little bit on my cream color to make sure that it's following along nice and smoothly and not having created any loops or anything on here on the back of my work. I'm ready to work my 5th stitch. So again, yarn over with spa, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through the first two. Now change to cream, yarn over with cream and go through the last 2 loops. You can see we are ready to work 1 stitch in cream. So we yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2. But again, we want to continue with spa. So switch places, make a yarn over with spa and pull through the next 2 loops. Now we have spa on our hook and we can work our next 5 double crochets. So as you can see, you always have to think 1 step ahead, always making sure to change to the next color in the last pull through of the stitch before changing to the next color. So what I mean again is that now I know I'm going to work my last of the 5 double crochets. So I do go through the first 2, but before I go through my last 2, I change to cream. And that finishes that repetition. So now the repetition is to work 1 cream and 5 spa. 1 cream and 5 spa. And I'm going to continue that across. I'll meet you again at the end of the row. I'm nearing the end here now on row 2. I worked 4 double crochet in spa and I'm working my 5th one. So again, I'm just bringing up the spa and going through my first 2, and now I'm going to change to cream. And if you noticed, I went this way at some point and I went this way at another point, and that's because it actually does not matter at all in which way you twist the colors here when you're changing to the new color. So you put that one on your hook and you pull through the last 2 loops. So here at the end, we're placing a cream stitch. In the next to last stitch, you go through the first 2 loops and then again switch to the new color and go through the last 2 loops. Now I have the chain 3 left here at the beginning of previous row, so we'll place a double crochet in top of these chain 3 and we'll go through the first 2, but then here we're going to again change back to cream, as next row is going to start with the cream stitch. So that finishes off row 2 of this stripe and our first row with color work. We are ready for row 3. So turn your work around, and now we are on the right side of work again. So I'm making sure that I have both my collar here in control, and I will start row 3 with the chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then the pattern tells me to work a double crochet in each of the next two. And make sure now that you have your spa collar following here in the back. So when you work your next double crochet, yarn over, you see this chain 3 comes out of this first one. So we're going to work into the next one. And I'm going to put the spa on top so that I work around the spa collar. So 1 and go through the last 2. Then we're going to work one more stitch with cream, and then we're going to change to spa in the last pull through. So we're going through, working around spa collar, yarn over and go through the first 2, and then switch to spa, yarn over and go through the next 2. So for this row, the repetition will be to work 3 cream colors, 3 spa colors, 3 cream, 3 spa, and so on. And you're going to see how that will start creating the beginning of our little triangular pieces here. So it's just going to make it fairly easy for us to kind of get into a routine. So with spa, we'll work around cream and we'll do 1, we'll do 2, and then at the end of 3, we'll work and go through the first 2, and at the end we'll change to cream and go through the last 2. And then with cream we're going to work around spa and we'll do 1 and we will do 2 and then we will do 3, and at the end of the third we'll change to spa. So as you can see, the single cream ones we had here on the previous row, we're now placing 3 on top centered over that one. So that is a good thing to keep track of when you work this row, so that you make sure that you stay in pattern. So now with spa, we're going to work the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And remember, at the end of 3, you change to the next color. So that will be our repetition. Keep working your 3 spa, 3 cream, 3 spa, etc. across, and I'll meet you again at the end of the row. I'm nearing the end of my 3rd row, and you can see here I have 3 more stitches and I have white on my hook, so I'm about to make my last 3 stitches. And at this point, I'm actually going to drop the spa color because I'm not going to be using the spa at the beginning of next row. So I'll just work my last 3 stitches here with cream and placing the last one here at the top of those chains I had beginning of previous row. So there we have finished our row 3, and we're turning around to our wrong side again. So we're ready to work our 4th row here now, and let's get our yarns in order. I'm on the wrong side, so therefore I have this spa color here facing me until it's time to use it. I'm on row 4. We'll look at the pattern. It tells us to chain 3 and then to work a double crochet in each of next 3. So starting in the second one, we'll do 1 and we'll do our second, and then we're doing our 3rd one. And at this point, we're going to change to spa. So bring up the spa collar, don't tighten it, but just make sure to pull it through so that you're ready to work your next stitch. You're just going to work 1 stitch with the spa. So work around cream, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and go through the first 2, then bring up cream, yarn over and go through the last 2. You can tighten a little bit. We are ready to work with cream in our next 5. And as you can see, you have your 3 white. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centered over your 3 cream ones from before. So line up the spa here at the top and work your next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on your fifth one, you are going to remember to change to spa in your last pull through. So put your cream away, yarn over with spa, and pull through. Now with spa, we're just making one stitch, so go into your next, yarn over, go through the first two, and then change it back to cream and pull through the last 2 loops. Now with cream, again, we are ready to work the next 5, and we're working around the spa color. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming up. And again, remember, the end of your 5th stitch, bring up spa and pull through. So there you have the repetition for this row. You're going to do a spa and 5 cream. As you can see here, spa, 5 cream, spa, 5 cream, and so on. So I'll continue like this, and I'll meet you again at the end of the row. I'm nearing the end of row 4, and I worked my last stitch with spa, and next row is going to be all cream. So I can let go of spa at this point, and I'll be working my last 4 stitches here with cream, and 1 double crochet in each double crochet, and then ending with a double crochet in the top of my chain 3. So that finishes off row 4. We have 1 more row to work, but before that, I'm just going to fasten off spa so we don't get caught up in that color when we're working our last row. We're back on our right side again, and we can really see the triangular color work that we have created, and now we're just going to work the last row with cream only. So we will chain 3, and then we're just going to work a double crochet in each stitch across. So starting in the next stitch, just work cream double crochets in every stitch across. I'll meet you again at the end of this row. I'm nearing the end here now on row 5, and I'm just putting my last double crochets here across, ending with a double crochet in the top of the 3rd chain. Oops. So if you want to double count yourself, you now have still 135 double crochets across. You can fasten off the cream color, and that completes stripe 24.